I just read 2 episodes from this omnibus about when Bruce Wayne specifically, gets framed for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, who is a journalist. So this is obviously a very big book, but I think that the cover art immediately draws you in. Like, you have this really very interesting premise. He's backed up against the wall, there's gunshots on the wall, and then you have wanted Bruce Wayne for murder. So you kind of get a really easy idea of the general plot line, and it's a very, very interesting and detailed image, so I think it captures your attention pretty quickly. Yeah. And then on the back as well, you actually have his ex-girlfriend's dead body, which is also definitely an attention grabber. So I think it's a very effective piece of cover art. You understand what it is that you're about to read, and you want to read it because you're seeing some pretty intriguing images. And I also noticed that on the inside of the jacket, you have his mugshot, and it's the same on the other one as well. Right there. So I think it's actually a really interesting way to sort of physically frame the book with the mugshot. It's a really interesting artistic choice. So the parts that I read specifically was right after she's been murdered and her body has been discovered. And Bruce has been discovered carrying her body, essentially. So obviously that's very incriminating. And his bodyguard, Sasha Bordeaux, is just standing nearby. So they are both taken in for questioning because the circumstances are very suspicious. I understand why they were taken in. So it opens, the section I read, opens once again with that mugshot because they are going to jail now to be questioned. So we have opening images of Bruce being handcuffed by the police. They've entered his house, and they're all talking about how big of a deal this investigation is because Bruce Wayne is such a high-profile person. He's really famous. He golfs with the mayor. So this is just a very, very delicate situation. And this is all conveyed not in actual speech bubbles, but in bubbles like you're overhearing on an intercom, a radio of some sort. And this is all done over images of being loaded up into the back of police cars. So you definitely get immediately a real sense of urgency. You understand how important, how high the stakes are, which I think is just very effective storytelling in any medium, but especially in comic books. This page in particular stood out to me. When there's a bunch of reporters outside of Wayne Manor, and you can immediately tell, like you can feel the claustrophobia almost, how crowded it is, how loud it is from the reporters shouting questions and the helicopters above, and that kind of pressure really creates like momentum throughout this piece. Like you just want to keep flipping because you can feel how stressed out the cops are and how important this is. And then the reveal of the body itself, it's very dramatic, and it's a really detailed panel. There's so many, like you can really play detective yourself. You can notice the broken glasses, the phone that's on the ground, and then like the broken window pane. There's all these details. And then you learn a bit more. She's been shot 4 times in the back. Bruce Wayne moved her body. So you learn a bit more details of the case. And then there's the bedroom. We sort of get taken through the house to get a bit of a better idea. And then, now the detectives are on their way to the jail to actually question Bruce and Sasha. It's a really striking image just to see Bruce like head down, shirt covered in blood. He doesn't really look like the heroic Batman that we're used to seeing him as. It's very humanizing. Yep, they have them sign their Miranda rights, and then they start questioning them, and the detective tries to break Sasha and tries to pit them against each other, very back and forth, but Sasha doesn't break because she can't reveal the secret where they were last night because they were busy doing Batman stuff. And there's this really interesting panel in her interrogation scene where she's defending Bruce and saying he didn't do it, right down here. And I really love this panel because you can almost see the black of the Batman mask coming up to sort of cover her face. And it's this really interesting artistic choice because it really shows like how much like she cares about him, like she's defending him, and she's not going to give up his secrets. And then we get to hear the 911 call. It doesn't really give us a ton of information, but it's very emotionally jarring. Sasha is crying when they play it for her in the interrogation, but neither of them will break still, and Bruce asks for his lawyer. So then we get to see the section with Batgirl, which is basically sort of a telling of what we already know, but from a totally new perspective, which actually provides us with a bit more new information. So we start out with Oracle, and we sort of get a little bit of context about who Batgirl is, who is Oracle, what is her job, and we learn that Batgirl really admires Batman, doesn't know who he is, doesn't know a lot about him, but maybe admires him too much. Maybe she's a little bit naive. So we sort of understand that dynamic right from the get-go. But then this all gets interrupted by the big blaring 911 intercept call. And once again, we hear that recording, and Oracle's trying to figure out who to call, and then she decides to call Batgirl. So Batgirl gets to Wayne Manor, and we're seeing what we've already seen, except now we're seeing it all from new angles. And this is when we sort of get the first bit of foreshadowing that she might be figuring out who Batman actually is. We have this like really close-up panel of his side profile, and that's definitely something to take notice of, and that becomes even more relevant at the end of this section. So we see her overhearing the cops' discussion. She's doing some spying. We're seeing everything that we've seen, but different angles, different panels. And she even gets a photo at one point of the body, and she's trying to send this all to Oracle, but there's issues with the communication, so she has to describe it. Yeah. And then we see some new information, which we haven't seen before, which is the detectives looking for the murder weapon, the gun, which they do eventually find. And then we overhear them talking about Bruce's obviously tragic backstory with his parents' death, and that's also very humanizing for him. Yep, so Batgirl's recording all of this, she's getting all this information, the detectives find the gun, it's all pretty incriminating. And then Batgirl, she's back in her lair, she's outside of the manor, and she decides for herself, I'm going to do some research. And so she searches up about Bruce Wayne, about his parents, and she finds this old article from when he's little, and she recognizes him. And you have this really amazing panel. It's the last panel of the section, where she is just putting it all together. You can see that's her looking at the screen, that's Bruce's eyes, and then she had like this huge like moment of realization, and then she says, Batman. So she's figured out who Bruce Wayne is. I have to say that I did feel like this presentation was very accessible. Even though I didn't really know all of the context behind Batman, I could pick it up pretty quickly because it was given to us in sort of like suggested moments, especially in like Oracle's conversation when she's talking about Batman and Batgirl. And I think that is honestly just the imagery is really vivid, it's really well done, and it makes you want to keep reading. So I think that honestly, if you just gave somebody just one of these sections, they would feel incentivized to go and find the rest and read more. Maybe not if it was in like this massive book, because it is quite large. I can't imagine a casual first-time reader picking this up, but I think that if somebody had a little bit of exposure, they would then be incentivized to go read more because it is so riveting and you really do get swept up in it. So obviously I really enjoyed this. I think that a lot of people would enjoy this too. Batman is like a pretty culturally iconic character, and this sort of angle, the personal angle mixed with his superhero identity, I think is also intriguing and not something that we usually see. So all in all, I think it's a very well done piece of comic work. I would definitely recommend it to a friend, and I had a lot of fun reading it.